Hello, I'm Nikki.
And I'm Jess.
She's the traumatized.
And she's the abandoned.
And welcome to our podcast, where we talk about true crime, spooky things, and everything in between.
And today we're going to be talking about some true crime. I'm so excited.
Woot.
So how was your week?
Physically fine.
Oh, right.
Emotionally, it was a rough one, I think. For both of us. But we made it through.
My sleep schedule's fucked, but
same. I think I couldn't fall asleep last night till like 3 in the morning.
I mean, I was exhausted because we were over at Tim's cousin's house for like a cookout, and I was so tired when we left, and I got here and I was like wide awake. So I ended up staying up and like doing the podcast thing, and then I think I actually ended up just going to lay down and finally was able to go to sleep, but I'm ready to get back on my sleep schedule. But you know what? We're here and we're doing a podcast, which I'm really excited. I'm really excited for my story. I'm really excited to hear your story, so it's going to be great.
I definitely want to like pick out some stories and just write them beforehand, because writing it the night before is not it.
It's not the play.
But also when the only source I can find is an actual book. Also, like,
that's intense. Not it. No. That's and just as a heads up, my story is extremely long. Like, probably one of the longest stories.
I don't think mine is long, but at the same time, I don't know.
Okay, so fun fact of the day of the week.
Yes, I'm ready. Already.
So apparently, if you stick an onion in the freezer for 15 minutes before you need to cut it, it's not going to make you cry.
What?
It prevents the acid enzymes from working properly if you freeze it 15 minutes before you need to cut it.
Interesting.
So if you really need to cut up a lot of onions and you just did your makeup, throw them in the freezer first for 15 minutes and you're good.
I also, the wet pepper towel trick works too. Like if you take a paper towel, wet it, and then put it like kind of underneath your cutting board between you and the onion, because what it's trying to do is it's trying whatever the enzymes or whatever is trying to go to the closest like wet spot. So instead of going to your tear ducts, it'll go to the paper towel. At least that's what
I've never
heard.
tried that. That's pretty cool. The more you know, guys. The more you know.
The more you know.
The more you know. Okay.
I guess we're gonna jump right into it. So my story is the Bathtub Sisters.
I am so interested in this. Okay,
so before I begin, the story I'm about to tell you, most names, nationalities, and professions of the members involved, friends and families of the members involved, have been changed due to a Canadian youth law that protects the identities of anyone under 18 accused of crime.
Okay.
So, I don't know if that gives you any ideas.
Yeah.
But also all of my information is from a book about this case called The Class Project: How to Kill a Mother.
That's terrifying. Okay.
This case I'm about to tell you about was considered one of Canada's most sensational murder trials in Canadian history. Legal experts said it was the first time ever sisters had ever been accused in Canada of matricide. So if you
matricide.
So if you guys kind of didn't get the gist from all of the clues I've already dropped, a pair of sisters killed their mother, and we'll get into it. According to the legal experts, this is just like some information about the case overall, and then I'll get into the nitty-gritty. According to the legal experts, the most striking aspect of the landmark Canadian murder case was the role that a close group of friends played, or for that matter, didn't play in the entire sinister enterprise. These friends didn't do anything to stop them, and actually encouraged them.
I'm so interested. Okay.
So let's get into it. Like I said, names are changed, professions are changed. So, I mean, that's all I can say. Like,
So
everything's...
these are not their real names.
These are not their
guys.
real names. This is their story. Linda Anderson was a single mother of 3 who worked 2 jobs to provide for her children. Sandra, 16, Beth, 15, and Bobby, an unknown age. I think he was under 10, though, is my
It's just a
suspicion.
baby.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Linda was struggling with the failure of 2 marriages and turned to alcohol to cope on most days. Linda's sister thought Linda was a good mother who provided for her children and cared deeply for them. Though she knew Linda lived paycheck to paycheck and would even loan her money when Linda needed it, but Linda would always pay her back. When her nieces brought up the fact that their mother was a heavy drinker, Linda and her sister went to an AA meeting. So Linda brought her sister with her to an AA meeting, but Linda said that she didn't relate to the people, like she didn't think
Right.
she had a problem, and that was
Okay.
kind of that. Linda's sister thought that her nieces could be materialistic and demanding and not really appreciate what their mother did for them.
Yikes. Okay.
But that's not how the sisters describe their mother. And I will say the book talks kind of about how everyone's kind of feelings towards Linda was.
Okay.
So, in my opinion, I think you have to take kind of everything with a grain of salt. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because
Yeah, there's always 2 sides of a coin.
yeah, there's always 2 sides, and it
Mhm.
kind of seems like these sides are very differing in their opinions of Linda. But how the sisters described their mother, they claimed that she was an abusive alcoholic. Sandra, the eldest of the children at 16, in many ways was the caretaker of the dysfunctional household. She cooked, cleaned, and took care of their little brother, Bobby. Linda, like I said, denied she had a problem, but Sandra would describe her drinking was getting worse, so much so that Linda would wake up and start drinking in the morning till she passed out.
Ew. Okay.
Also, Sandra couldn't even have a normal conversation with her mother without it turning into a screaming match. So she says that Linda's drinking got so bad that she would spend all of her money on booze, and she also lost one of her jobs for drinking.
I try to hold judgments, like
Yeah, when I was reading this book, I'm like, damn, she's a bitch of a mother. And then I would get to another part, I was like, wait a minute.
is she though?
Is she? I'm confused. Like, I'm confused is my motto.
Do we
And
like
was
her?
yeah, I was confused the whole way through. Especially when we get to like certain parts, I'll be like,
Oh,
I'll let you know.
Okay.
So now I'm gonna try and talk about the girls for a little bit. Sandra was kind of like the most described in this book, so I think whoever wrote the book talked to Sandra the most.
And she was the oldest, right?
And she was the oldest, yeah. So Sandra was described as a loner. She was intellectually gifted, but was an introvert. So she got really good grades in school. But at the end of grade 10, Sandra had many friends. And her friends weren't rich, but they had a comfortable life,
Right.
They were well off. From what I read, it seemed that Sandra was extremely jealous of her friends and thought she deserved the lifestyle her friends had.
I mean, of a functional family, I could understand that.
So she thought she deserved the lifestyle her friends had. She resented having to cook and clean. And though she says she loves her brother, she resented having to take care of him.
Okay.
Basically, she hated her life and blamed her mother for it.
Gotta blame somebody, I guess. Can't blame yourself.
Yep. She believed that no one would help her and her siblings, not their relatives or her mother's friends or even society. After years of feeling depressed and unloved, she finally suffered enough. Sandra wanted to have Beth on her side, but with or without Beth's help, Sandra had made up her mind. So now let's talk about Beth. Beth is kind of similar to Sandra. There's not a lot of information about her, like I said, because I think a lot of it was spoken through Sandra. But both girls worked really hard in school, and they were really good kids, and they got all good grades and stuff like that. And they were told by their family, you work hard now, your life will get better. Well, them being kids, they didn't really quite understand the concept that you're working hard for your future. And when their current life wasn't getting any better, they both gave up on school.
Aw, okay.
Sometimes even skipping school. Basically, They gave up on school and their personalities did a 180. They started dyeing their hair, dressing in goth, skipping school, smoking pot, drinking alcohol, like all of the rebel shit that you can do, they were doing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And Sandra was kind of Beth's only role model. She didn't really have anyone else to look up to, but often Beth felt frustrated by her older sister. Beth initially didn't like her sister's plan, but soon went along with it. And the more Beth thought about it, the more merciful it seemed in her mind.
Merciful? Okay.
The girls didn't get along. They lived very much separate lives, but this plot to kill their mother brought them together for a common cause.
Jesus.
Before coming to this serious decision, though, Sandra did make efforts to reach out. Family members turned a blind eye to Sandra's plea for help. Linda's sister went with her to an AA meeting. So obviously she's like, if you have a problem, let's go here, let's check it out. But Sandra also called Children's Aid Society in the spring of 2001. The social worker showed up, but court documents say the girls said nothing bad about their mother and never mentioned the drinking. So for the first call, I think it was for Linda's boyfriend had become abusive or hit her or something. Something happened with the boyfriend or husband or whoever it was at the time. And so Sandra called CAS, got him removed. They had said nothing about their mother at this time. Okay. In the June of the same year, Sandra called again. This time, she stated that her mother was an alcoholic and that Linda had made them lie the first time that they visited. She also told them that her mother often drove drunk, but CAS never believed Linda's children were neglected. So I don't know if they did like an investigation. It really didn't go in too much detail. It just basically said what Sandra had told them was going on. And then it just said that the CAS had never believed that the children were neglected at all. So, little side note as well, Sandra believed that they would eventually get their share of their mother's life insurance money worth $200,000, though the money would be held in a trust till they were 18. So once they turned 18, each child would get $70,000 worth of the life insurance money. The reason why we have a lot of information about this case is because both girls would talk about the plot with their friends on online messenger.
Now, did they, you might get to it, but like, did their friends just assume they were just like fucking around? Like,
a lot of them would claim that that's what they thought. Yeah. Like in court, they would say, "Oh, we thought they were just joking." Two very particular ones were heavily involved in the planning. So each of them had a guy best friend. Sandra had Jay and Beth had Justin. They would bounce ideas off the boys, like, and like the boys would bring in ideas and they'd be like, no, too messy, to that, to this, you know.
Weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, Justin is the one that supplied some pills to the girls that they used on their mother. So he was directly involved for sure.
Wow. Okay.
And he was charged. I think he spent some time in jail for that. So one thing I wanted to do before we get into the actual crime, I want to take a small peek into Sandra's mind because, like I said, the book was written a lot from her perspective, I think, and it's interesting to say the least.
Oh, Lord.
So first thing I want to talk about is Sandra thought it would be entertaining to invent a rumor that she was pregnant to get the attention of a boy she liked. So like in the book as well, there's like this whole messenger chat between her and Jay, her best friend. She's like, that's who the baby daddy was, apparently. So Jay and her like were pregnant or whatever, and he's like, the rumor's not spreading, and she's like, oh well, I'll have to spread it then. But like she got a kick of how much attention she received from both like students and teachers.
Weird.
I don't know if that kind of like describes her personality right there.
Yeah.
So another thing that I want to look into were some of the messages she sent before everything went down. So while discussing what she was going to do after everything happened, she said that she wanted to stay in the townhouse that they lived in. So it was either stay in the townhouse or her other plan was stay with her aunt, which was Lisa's sister, because her aunt was pretty well off. And she talked about maybe having to get roommates to help pay to stay in the townhouse.
How old was she?
Sandra is 16. Beth is 15.
So like they maybe it's different in Canada.
In Canada, at 16, you can have a house.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was
sorry.
gonna say in America you have to have a legal guardian unless you're 18.
Yeah, no. You can
Okay.
at 16. And so her friend Jay was like asking her, are you going to go back to school? Like once everything goes down?
Weird. It's so weird.
This is what Sandra says. I have quote from the message that she sent. You actually think I'm going back to high school? After I get my $70,000, I'm going to waste it on traveling, drugs, and a gun. Direct quote. That's what she sent him. And that's just like the tip of the
priorities.
ice. Yeah.
Just priorities.
Just priorities. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Like the messages are so disturbing and distressing. That's why like when I was messaging you, I'm like, I'm getting a migraine from the mess that this is.
Yikes. God.
So yeah, if you guys want more details into the messages, they're all in the book. I suggest if you want to, I don't
grab
know.
a glass of wine and go for it.
Definitely.
You're gonna need the wine.
Also, another thing she said to Jay, she joked about getting rid of Bobby too, so that they could get his share of money. But like, she was like, oh, hopefully he gets taken care of in like a car accident or something, you know?
Like, is she a psycho? Does she just not feel?
I don't know, because Jay is like, are you serious right now? And she's like, no, I'm just joking. It's like, I don't think she was joking.
Joke about your little
brother dying. Yeah, just so you can get $35,000 more dollars. One thing I do kind of want to state is the girls' friends did notice Linda's alcohol problem. So all of their friends do say that she did have an alcohol problem. But interestingly, Sandra's boyfriend knew that Linda gave the girls money for clothes, because that's like one of the things that they would complain about. Oh, their friends get nice clothes and we get like these shitty clothes. But he said that they would buy drugs instead of what they needed. So
okay,
I'm very suspicious of how the girls describe their home life. Anywho, we're here. The day of the murder.
We've arrived.
Are you buckled? Buckle up. On the day of January 18th, 2003, it was just after 6 p.m. when Sandra and Beth convinced their mom she should take a bath. By this point, Linda was extremely inebriated. Sandra had given her mother at least 3, perhaps 4, Tylenol 3s. If you don't know what that is, Tylenol 3 are basically painkillers that contain codeine, a narcotic that acts like sleeping pills, and is enhanced with alcohol. After consuming the pills, along with several glasses of wine and nearly a full bottle of vodka, Linda was nearly unconscious.
What? I was like, okay, a couple glasses of wine, a whole bottle of vodka. That escalated very quickly. Anyway.
She could barely stand as Sandra and Beth led her to the bathroom. They helped her undress, and Linda was so out of it, she climbed into the tub and laid down with her head against the taps. Sandra got Linda to roll over on her stomach and then proceeded to hold her mother's head under the water for 4 minutes. Minus the body's natural reaction, Linda did not put up a fight. Afterward, Beth and Sandra fled the home as quickly as possible and met their friends at a restaurant to set up their alibi. At about 10:30 p.m., the girls returned to the townhouse, and at 10:33, Sandra had called 911, and the 911 call is in the book as well. I didn't really take excerpts from it, but basically the gist was she told the operator that they came home, they found their mother in the tub. The operator asked if she could try and perform CPR. Sandra refused, basically going into a panic and began sobbing. Beth went to unlock the door and let the police in. Emergency services arrived on the scene. Both the police officer and the firefighter noted it was strange that the body was face down and its head under the faucet.
They didn't flip her back over?
No.
I mean, all right, she is 15. Fine, whatever.
There were no indication that the girls tried to take her out of the tub for resuscitation, as most family members do. When you come home, you find someone in the tub, and you drag them out and try to, you try to do CPR, try to save them. The girls stuck to their story when they were questioned separately. They left. She was watching TV. They went to the restaurant, had dinner, came back, found them in the tub. It was their story. Their younger brother was spending the weekend at his father's house, just to let everyone have a calm mind. They planned this murder
Okay.
so
I
that
was wondering.
on a day
Okay.
where their brother would be gone at his father's house. Because drowning in a bathtub is so very rare, police automatically considered Linda's death suspicious. But there were no signs of a struggle in the small bathroom, and the autopsy ruled that the cause of death was freshwater drowning due to excessive alcohol in her system. Also, there was no struggle, it seemed to be, on the body. There was no bruising, no
She
scratch
didn't
marks,
fight.
no nothing. Yeah,
Mhm.
she was so inebriated that she just couldn't fight
Mm.
back. Also, Sandra wore gloves so she wouldn't leave any
Handprints. Nice. Or fingerprints or anything. Cool. It didn't flip her over, though.
But her death was classified as an accidental drowning. Case closed. The girls would actually get away with this for almost a year.
Wow. Oh, but you can't let it go. You can't.
The girls acted very inappropriate at the funeral. Instead, they giggled and laughed with their friends just a few feet away from Linda's casket.
What?
Linda's coworkers were appalled by what they had witnessed that day.
Wow.
And like I said, her coworkers that were at the funeral, like, what kind of talked about it. They knew Linda was a kind, hardworking person. She was a good person, but they did know that she had her faults with alcohol. Like, she would show up to work
Right.
smelling of alcohol,
Okay.
but she was never mean. She was like a very nice person. Sandra and Beth would end up living with their aunt, who became their legal guardian. They did try living with their father, but their father was very strict, no alcohol. All they wanted to do was party, and he was not about that life.
Aw. Weird.
Yeah. So they ended up
Ugh.
moving in with their aunt, who became their legal guardian. After
Okay.
the murder,
The rich aunt?
Yeah.
Okay.
After the murder,
rich.
which by the way gave them 24/7 access to pot because their cousin access to it. So
Nice.
yeah.
Okay.
After the murder, Sandra seemed to go into a downward spiral. All she wanted to do was get stoned or drunk every chance she had, which she ended up pushing like her friends away because like that's all she wanted to do. And they were like, we can't do that. Sandra also had a habit of bragging about the murder when she was drunk. So she would actually confess.
Mean.
Yeah, she would actually confess this crime to like a guy she liked. And then she eventually confessed the crime to an old family friend. And he is the one who decided to go to the police and tell them
Well, I'm
what
glad
she
somebody
said.
did. Jesus. Oh my god.
He was worried she was going to commit suicide, but also the only one that ever had a conscience in this group of people.
Right? That actually thought, oh, maybe I should say something.
The police asked the family friend if he would be willing to help them in getting the confession, and he did. And he picked up Sandra in a wired car, and she confessed to everything. And
Wow.
in the book, it goes into detail. Like, it has the full recording of him with both girls. I kind of just skimmed through it because we're just trying to get through it. So he got her
Power
confession.
through.
Yeah. He also had a conversation with Beth separately and got her to confess also. So in recorded tapes. So on January 21st, 2004, just over a year after the murder, officers went to the aunt's house and arrested both girls for the murder of their mother. Both girls seemed extremely calm, unsurprised, and were offered to change clothes but decided to wear their pajamas. On the morning of January 22nd, 2004, Sandra, 17, and Beth, 16, appeared at the courthouse in their pajamas, where they were charged with killing their mother of 43. They both pled not guilty.
Why PJs? Were they, maybe it made him appear more innocent?
Maybe, but they were dubbed the Pajama Sisters at the like when the whole media broke. Eventually,
Or maybe they thought it would make them seem
innocent or something
innocent?
or childlike.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Ugh, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, so they were like named Pajama Sisters or something in the media, but later turned into like the Bathtub Sisters. So prosecutors knew their case wasn't airtight, but fortunately, the girls left a mountain of incriminating evidence inside their computers because
did.
they
Well,
Put everything out on Messenger.
they haven't been really hiding anything anyway. Like, why would they hide this? You know what I mean? Like,
That's true.
Jesus.
So like when I was like reading it last night, I looked at my husband. I'm like, I'm so frustrated because I'm like, in one conversation, in like one Messenger conversation, they're like, oh, we can't talk about this here. Keep it offline or whatever. And then the next day they're like laying it line by line. Okay, so you're gonna give her these and this and do that and hold her under and like literally going into detail. I was like, how dumb can you be? Granted, they are just children, but like still, come on.
But like still, if or maybe they were just so confident that they would never get caught.
Well, also it is 2003, and we didn't really know much about computers then, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they thought if they just deleted the messages, they were gone. The girls opted for a trial by judge, and the judge ruled that the confession Sandra made to police, then later recanted, would be inadmissible for trial. So basically, the night before they showed up in court, they were interviewed by police, obviously, to try and get a confession. Sandra confessed, but later recanted. They thought that maybe that they could get the sisters to talk about it if they put them in a room together. So they said, oh, you're being recorded. And so the girls spoke to each other, but they spoke to each other in Dutch because their mother was actually from Holland.
Okay.
So they were speaking in Dutch. Obviously, they had it translated. Beth was basically trying to say, oh, David thought we were serious. We were kidding. You know, the family friend who recorded them. We were just joking about all that. And Sandra, having already confessed, was like, what are you talking about? What are you? Finally, Sandra, like, catches on, and they like, try to play it off that they were just joking, that they didn't do those things. They're just telling David that to scare him, whatever. Either way, the judge ruled that her confession could not be used in trial, which is fine. They had everything else. Let's be real here.
Right. Like
that doesn't.
Okay,
that doesn't really
you know
matter.
what? Fine. We'll nix
give you that one.
Right.
But so the judge said that he wanted to decide whether the sisters were guilty on first-degree murder based solely on the evidence presented during the trial. So he didn't want the confession. He didn't want, whatever. The trial lasted 8 weeks, and this is what the judge had to say at the end of it. So I have the judge's ruling right here. Obviously, he said a shit ton more. I just have his final words. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
The two defendants set out to commit the perfect crime, but instead, they created the perfect prosecution. The case against them is overwhelming. It is probably the strongest case I have ever seen in over 30 years of prosecuting, defending, and judging criminal cases. I find the defendants guilty as charged of first-degree murder.
Jesus. Okay. You fucked. That's what that is.
So each sister wrote a letter before sentencing, and I'm not going to read all the letters. I'm just taking 2 quotes from each letter. They're not necessarily in order. They're just 2 quotes that stuck out to me in their letters. So from Sandra's letter, I took the excerpt. I am responsible for the deliberate murder of my mother, Linda Anderson. I am no longer afraid of the truth. Taking my mother's life was the gravest and most defining mistake of my existence.
Ooh, okay. Not what I was expecting.
And then her second excerpt is this one. I will continue to share my story, and I will repay my debt to society. I plan to enroll in university to become a social worker. I want to live as a healer, as a teacher, and help the members of my community cope with pain. Beth's first excerpt from her letter.
So wait, that was the
That was the older one. That was Sandra.
Okay.
That was the one that actually committed the murder. Beth was in the room, but she didn't help hold her down or anything.
Okay.
So Beth, I want the opportunity to get better. Our mom's death was a product of greed, pain, and ignorance. At 15, I couldn't see past my nose and took advantage of my mom's trust to end her life. There is no justifying what I've done. No matter how many times I say I'm sorry, it won't bring my mother back. That, to me, is the worst punishment that I will never, ever be able to escape. And then she also said to end her letter, she said, I have so much to offer this world, but I need the right treatment to bring that out. I will never repeat
Wow.
our mistakes again, and maybe someday, Your Honor, will believe me and accept me as part of society again.
Wow.
I personally think Beth's letter kind of had more of like an internal reflection. I
Yeah.
need to be
Right.
better. I
Right.
think Sandra,
Is more just trying to get out of trouble.
I think so. I don't
kind
know.
of got that vibe too, just from the excerpts you read.
So the prosecutors wanted an adult sentence, but the judge wasn't swayed. On June 30th,
Okay.
2006, he ruled that Beth and Sandra would be sentenced as youths and placed in secured custody for no more than 6 years, then in open custody for no more than 4 years. So the max 10-year sentence that juveniles can receive. And that their identities would be protected forever. Hence why everything in the book and everything that we know is basically changed.
Interesting. Okay.
But nearly everybody agreed that they would likely be released well before serving their entire 10-year sentence. When I read this, I got so mad. In 2009, the judge released Sandra, then 23, to a halfway house, having only served 3 years. But Beth wasn't released until a year later.
Why? Was because of bad behavior or not?
There were some things, it goes into detail. I didn't really read it.
Yeah.
But I think I sat here for a solid 5 minutes in shock. Like, how?
I mean, that doesn't really shock me because Sandra seems like the master manipulator and being able to.
I'm better now.
Look at how good I've been. I'm like a model citizen now.
I don't know. Anywho, that's the Bathtub Sisters. Also, last little, if you can call it a fun fact, the motion picture Perfect Sisters is based off this story and book.
Ooh.
So,
is it coming out? Is it already out?
It's definitely already out, I think.
All right, my turn?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to talk very quickly. When I say this is the longest one I've done so far, it is the longest one I've done so far. It's almost 4,000 words. I'm just going to talk really fast, okay?
Okay.
Buckle up because I'm not going to slow down for you. Okay. So our story begins in Oklahoma City in April 1990 when a truck driving down the road notices some debris on the side of the road. As they slow down to investigate, they find a woman on the side of the road unresponsive. They rush to the hospital, at which time her husband, Clarence, shows up and informs them that her name was Tanya Hughes and she works as a stripper in Tulsa.
Red flag. I'm sus already. I'm very sus of Clarence.
Instantly sus.
Red flag.
As the doctors are examining her, they find old bruises and old injuries, and they immediately get the feeling that something's not right.
Interesting. I called it before you.
She has a medium severe closed head injury and was transferred to the ICU where they treated her with medications to control her blood pressure and the medications to control her brain swelling.
Okay.
Sadly, she ends up passing away.
Okay.
The women that Tanya worked with at the strip club wanted to find her family to let them know, as Clarence had no inclination to reach out to her family. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to.
Mm-hmm.
So they looked up the woman with her last name, found her, called her to let them know that their daughter had passed. The woman responded with, "What are you talking about? My daughter passed away 20 years ago and she was 18 months old."
Oh, stolen identity.
So at this point, her friends realized that they don't know who they just buried, but it was not Tanya Hughes.
Yeah, what the? Okay.
Should we keep a twist counter? I think that should be 1.
Twist counter 1.
First of all, how did she die? And second of all, who is she? Those are our questions.
You said she had a head injury?
She had a head injury. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
So Karen Parsley, who had met Tanya at Passions, which is the strip club they worked at in the fall of 1989, said they instantly became close friends as they were the babies of the group. They were the youngest 2 people who worked there. I believe they were 19 when they started, 20 at the time that Tanya passed away. She always knew Tanya was smart. She was always reading and wanting to learn more. One day she met her husband, who was a bit older than her. That's a quote. And their 2-year-old son named Michael.
I don't like Clarence. I don't know him, and I don't like him. Like, you literally just told me he showed up to the hospital. I'm like, don't like him. Red flag. I don't like him.
Your name's Clarence.
Clarence.
That's your first mistake. No, just kidding. Sorry, anybody named Clarence. No offense, no offense. I kid. Karen mentioned that, and this is another quote from the documentary, her son meant everything to her. He was her world. Michael was always attached to her side, always followed her, was her shadow. Karen wanted to take them places, like go to the zoo, you know, get out to go to ice cream. However, Tanya said she wasn't allowed to take Michael anywhere without clearance.
How many red flags are we at right now? Because
my next
so
line,
many.
we should have that counter too. So I'm like over there. So my next line is, there were other red flags too.
Okay, first of all, you show up to the hospital already knowing that your wife's there somehow. Red flag. You don't want to call her family to let them know that she passed. Red flag. That's not her name. Red flag.
That's not my name. That's not her name.
She can't bring her child anywhere without you. Red flag. We're at 4 right now.
We're at 4. And like, this is just a kind of a reiteration. Well, actually, you missed one. When they would change or get dressed at work, she would be covered in bruises. And she had old bruises and stuff while she was there.
5 red flag.
When they would ask her about them, she said she would slip and fall. She was super clumsy, but no one really believed it. It was bad, and she said it was actually getting worse. You got that red flag counter?
Okay.
At one point, Tanya had told Karen that Clarence had taken a life insurance policy out on her, and she was terrified.
Red flag.
But she didn't think she could escape and didn't want to risk Michael getting hurt, so she stayed.
Red flag.
On April 25th, 1990, Clarence called Karen to tell her that Tanya had been involved in a hit-and-run accident in Oklahoma City. Now, in the documentary, Karen's like, why are you guys in Oklahoma City? Like, that was nowhere near where she was like, she didn't tell me she was going out of town. They were extremely close, and so that was another
red flag.
Red flag.
We're at 8 right now.
Clarence then said nobody could visit her in the ICU.
Red flag.
But as the good friend, as the best friend that she was, she snuck in to see her. It was at this point that the nurses let her know that they believed it was foul play. The injuries did not look like a hit and run.
Red flag.
She had scratch marks down her chest and looked like she had been in a fight. One of her doctors actually stated that she was in very good condition for a hit and run. Like, it did not, like, it was just her head. Like, there was no actual, you know what I mean? You get hit by a moving vehicle.
Right. You're fucked up.
Her vitals were actually all good, but she seemed to have a sinking spell. And it was a mystery as to why. So sinking spell it's basically like a broken heart syndrome.
Okay.
Patients just give up. They start plummeting and there's no reason why. They just give up.
Okay.
At this point, she couldn't recover, and she was 20 years old when she passed away.
Karen
was, sorry, we're gonna let that sink in. She was a baby, and she had a baby. So when they buried her, they only put Tanya on her tombstone.
Aww. Was Clarence even involved in the funeral process and stuff? Like,
it is unknown. I know a lot of people were Clarence was just not. He was not a good guy. So now at this time, Tanya has passed, and the hospital called Karen to ask about Michael's condition, Tanya's 2-year-old son, because he wasn't talking. He had completely shut down. Karen, they ended up giving her the number for DHS, and she called, and they actually ended up picking up Michael and putting him in a foster home because they were concerned about how he was reacting. Now, I don't, they didn't go into big detail about this, but it definitely, I think they were concerned because it was foul play.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to get the 2-year-old away
out of the
and
house.
safe.
Yeah.
So his foster parents received Michael on May 1st, 1990. And that was the day after his mother passed away. They worked with him and loved him the moment they got him. When he first got there, the caseworker was like, he'll only drink Pepsi out of the bottle. He's on a bottle and he'll only drink Pepsi out of it. That's it. And they said in the yeah, 2-year-old. And so in the documentary, the foster parents were like, I don't know what we were thinking, but man, the first night he was there, we gave him milk in a glass and we said, nope. No Pepsi for you. They just took him straight off the bottle.
I mean, it worked. I'm assuming.
It worked.
Nice.
Mhm.
Okay. Pepsi in
It
a
worked
bottle.
for them. They continued to encourage growth and development. However, the whole time that they had Michael, his dad was trying to get him back.
His dad is who?
Clarence. He went to court stating the foster parents were abusive and they were trying to turn his child against him.
He's 2.
He was very good at playing the victim in court. However, thank goodness, I think for the most part, the judges saw right through it. Clarence would go in and say he never abused the child. He was wrongfully taken away from him. They have, in the documentary, they have all of his like interviews in there. You should definitely watch them because you think he has bad vibes when I'm telling the story. Like you should watch.
You literally introduced him and I'm like, bad vibes.
Nope.
Get out.
So all this being said, he did have rights for supervised visits, but every time Michael's foster parents would go to take him over there, he would crawl underneath like the table or the piano thing and literally just repeat, like saying like, no, that's a mean man. That's a mean man. Please, no, that's a mean man. But they had to take it, but he never wanted to go. So this went on for like 3 to 4 years, right?
Okay.
He was still fighting. Suddenly, the courts asked for a paternity test. Up to this point, everyone had assumed Michael was his son, and that's why he was fighting so hard. However, when the paternity test came back, he was not Michael's father.
I'm so shocked.
No biological relation, so they terminated his parental rights completely.
Boy.
So at this point, the foster parents apply for, they start the adoption paperwork. They're in the adoption process. When they notice there's a truck slowly driving by their house every day, and they called and they were like, what kind of truck does Clarence drive? And it was Clarence was definitely scoping out the house.
What a dig. Like, why is he so obsessed with this child?
So we're going to jump ahead a little bit to September 12th, 1994. Police were called to the scene where a man who was alive had been tied up to a tree.
What?
When police questioned him, he said that man had walked into the elementary school where he worked as the principal. He said he was there to get his son. It was at this point where he pulled a gun out of his pocket, told the principal that he was ready to die. If the principal didn't help him, he was going to kill the principal and then himself. The man was Clarence.
What is happening?
Twist.
I'm confused.
So Clarence walks into the elementary school.
Why?
Asked to see the principal.
Yeah,
Principal gets there. He pulls the gun on the principal.
That. Why is he doing this?
He kidnapped Michael from his school along with the principal. They ended up taking the principal's truck, drove down a dirt road, and handcuffed the principal to the tree, leaving him there.
Michael's what age at this point in time?
He's 4.
He's 4.
So Clarence has Michael.
Fuck.
At this point,
what is this story?
At this point, the FBI are called in.
Yeah, when a child gets kidnapped, it's usually the FBI.
So they want to investigate Clarence Hughes and found that back in 1990, he tried to collect on his wife's life insurance policy. But the social security number he gave to claim the life insurance policy was for a man named Franklin Floyd.
I'm so confused.
So Clarence Hughes' name
is not Clarence.
Is Franklin Floyd. But wait, that's not the only alias he had. He was also Trenton Davis and Warren Marshall.
I'm confused, but continue.
Multiple aliases. And this is going to get worse.
I knew I didn't like him.
We don't like him. Just wait, because then they pulled his criminal record and found that in 1962 he had abducted a girl.
No.
He robbed a bank in 1963 and then went to jail for both of those accounts.
Okay.
But was released for good behavior in 1972.
Always released for good behavior.
And attacked a female a year later. He was arrested again for breaking his probation, but posted bail and failed to appear in court for trial.
And he was gone, right? Just gone.
And he has been on the run for almost 17 years. And that was Floyd. That was Franklin.
Good God. Okay.
So now that they've realized that this dude's fucked up,
yeah,
they looked back on Tanya's death and they're like, maybe we should Maybe we should really...
count the red flags we were seeing and kind of look into this a little bit deeper.
And they really wanted to figure out who she actually was, because like, who the fuck is she? So they began flooding the news with with obviously Michael's information and pictures of Tanya. I mean, this is a crazy story that's breaking. So the news was flooded.
Right.
A mother and daughter were actually watching the news together and saw pictures, and the daughter recognized Tanya.
Okay.
However, she recognized her as Sharon, not Tanya.
Sharon.
Sharon Marshall.
Okay.
They called the FBI hotline for tips or whatever, and informed them that her name was actually Sharon Marshall. And the daughter who called the FBI, her name was Jenny, and she had been Sharon's best friend in high school. So at this point, they go into like Sharon in high school. She was known as the nicest person who would literally stand up for anybody who couldn't stand up for themselves. She was top of her class, genius, so smart, was in all the nerd clubs you can think of. Her dream was to go to Georgia Tech and to be an aerospace engineer, like that kind of smart.
Okay.
Like that kind of smart. At this point, Jenny is, reminiscing, and she's like, she remembers the day that she called screaming because she had actually gotten accepted to Georgia Tech on a full scholarship and was so happy. We're going to go over some red flags that were happening in the background.
As she was a child or in the high school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
High school. Sharon had mentioned at this point that her mom had been hit by a car and died when she was in 2nd grade. So it was just her and her dad growing up. Her dad always acted strange around the other parents. Sharon was always in charge of cooking dinner every night. She wasn't allowed to talk on the phone unless her dad wasn't there, and then she could like sneak phone calls, but she wasn't allowed to use the phone. And this is as like a junior, senior in high school. There was also a night where Jenny had actually witnessed Sharon's dad sexually assault him.
Wait, hold up. What? She witnessed? Okay.
Like, Jenny was over for a sleepover. Her dad was drunk and came in, and I don't know. I think in the documentary she said they thought Jenny was sleeping, but she wasn't. And then like the next morning, Sharon woke up and she's like, "Oh, that's just how Daddy is sometimes."
Ew.
So then one day, Sharon called her friend sobbing, saying that she was pregnant. She was going to have the baby and put it up for adoption.
No.
But that's not really why she was so upset. It was because her father wouldn't let her go to college now. And when asked why, her answer was, somebody has to take care of Daddy.
Jess, don't tell me that the child is... Don't.
A few weeks later, she called again saying they were moving to Arizona. She was going to have the baby out there. She was still going to put it up for the adoption because, quote, Daddy won't let me keep it.
Stop saying Daddy. Please stop saying Daddy. That's the truth. Stop.
I don't think I say it anymore. That helps. So they left, and that was the last Jenny ever saw Sharon alive. So this is where I'm going to need you to buckle up.
What do you mean? So is the child...
At this point, Jenny had called the FBI and set up the meeting with Joe Fitzpatrick. Joe is the agent who followed this case for like, I don't know how many, I think it was something like 17 years. Like, he ended up retiring, but coming out of retirement to help. Like, he is the dude.
Go, Joe.
So go freaking Joe. And he was leading the case of the kidnapping on Michael as well. So Jenny informed them at the time that the woman they thought was Tanya Hughes was actually Sharon Marshall. We knew that. But the person they knew as her husband, Clarence Hughes, was actually Sharon's father, Warren Marshall.
Stop! You said his name was Floyd!
It is Floyd. He was using another alias. The FBI agent at this point was very confused, like, no, they're married. And Jenny was like, no, that's her father. They're not married.
What is happening? I want to leave. Can I leave? I don't want to know anymore. What?
Okay, so the FBI then realized after talking with Jenny that Tanya also had aliases. In 1989, 1 year before her death, they had changed her name. Later, they found out the names were actually taken off tombstones in Alabama, which is why when they called the mom at the very beginning, they were like, what? My daughter's been dead for 18 or 20 years or however many years. So they changed their names and then they got married under their new names in New Orleans. So now the question is, what happened to Sharon between the time she left after high school and to the point where she has died? At this point, obviously her death is suspicious, but there's no proof that Warren Marshall had her killed. So they were able to map out, once they had left, they moved to Tampa, Florida, because she started working as a stripper in 1988 in Tampa, Florida. Do you want to talk about the red flags that happened there? Do you want to?
Yes.
Um,
I think we're past red flags right now.
So this is the year after she changed her name and got married. So they are still father-daughter at this point.
Father, daughter, grandson. Correct.
While working at the strip club, she actually got in trouble for trying to solicit men because it was a high-end strip club. Like, it was one of the well-known strip clubs in Tampa, Florida.
You don't do that there.
And she was always trying to solicit them for like $50.
Girl.
But when her friends asked her about it, she told them, well, my dad had told me to do it. He bought me the condoms and everything. So at the time she was hired, she was able to
why?
She was able to hide. I don't know. Just stop asking.
Okay.
If you keep asking why, it's the whole thing is a why. I don't know. So she was able to hide her pregnancy at first, but obviously she's pregnant at this time. So she had to take some time off to have Michael. And this is when a woman named Cheryl enters the picture, befriends Sharon. Cheryl was her dream was to be like a supermodel and pose in Playboy. Like, that was her goal. Like, she was hot and she knew it.
Good for you. Like, if I could,
right?
like.
However, somebody who would watch Michael had found a video in their trailer. Cheryl and Sharon, who were being recorded topless on the beach. The friend thought it was really strange for Floyd to have a video of this woman and his own daughter like topless on a beach.
Oh, so at this point they're still acting as father and daughter.
Correct.
They haven't.
Yes, they haven't. This is the year before they went and changed their names and got married. Floyd ended up starting to fancy Cheryl because she's hot, and he tried to have sex with her. She obviously rejected him, so he started to become violent. At one day, she showed up to work with black eye and bruises all over her body. Floyd actually became very obsessed with Cheryl. Started to call the club every night, checking in to making sure she was working or if she was off. One night, they got into a huge fight outside the club. Floyd threatened to kill Cheryl in front of Cheryl's boss, so the club owner separated them, walked Cheryl home. At that point, it was thought that Cheryl was going to take some time, go be with her father and reset. Like, she needed to take some time away. The next day, Sharon and her dad disappeared. Sharon didn't show up to work. They just vanished. Of note, Cheryl never showed back up to work either.
What? Is she missing? Is she okay?
Meanwhile, the FBI are still trying to piece together who the fuck Sharon is.
We just don't know. Just gone? Nothing else?
They figured that Sharon would have been born between 1969 and 1970. What was interesting is Floyd was actually in prison from 1963 to 1972, so there's no way he could be her biological father. So,
okay,
there's that.
I don't know if that's better or worse.
Better or worse, right? So at this point, we know Floyd has a history of kidnapping. We know he's not her biological father. So put two and two together, they assume that Sharon had been kidnapped and had been with him for at least 15 years. So at this point, they're like, okay, guys, we gotta find Michael because he's still kidnapped. So the FBI literally put a stop to all of his aliases, and they start checking the places they had gone before, because apparently people who have multiple aliases and go to places, they repeat. So they actually get a hit when Warren Marshall driver's license comes up for renewal in Louisville, Kentucky.
I hate you.
The license gets delivered, I think, by like a UPS truck or something. So the FBI agent posed as the UPS driver, goes to hand the dude his license. He signs for it or something. They're able to confirm it's him and then instantly takes him into custody.
Thank God. Where's Michael?
There is no trace of Michael. No one had seen Michael or heard about him having a child. They actually found a one-way ticket from Atlanta, Georgia to Louisville, and there was only one ticket. There wasn't two tickets. So at this point, they sat down with Franklin Floyd and asked him if Michael was still alive. He claimed that he had left him with a rich family somewhere, but wouldn't disclose where.
He was happy with the family he was with. Bitch. Fuck off.
So now we're at the trial. The case that Floyd murdered Michael, they don't have it because they don't have a body. So they can't prove that he's killed Michael. However, they were charging him with kidnapping, carjacking, using a firearm during the carjacking, and second-degree firearm offense, which would at least get him 30 years in prison.
Okay.
This motherfucker defends himself.
Of course he does.
He was extremely aggressive. He was asking dumb questions. Basically, he wanted to get up and tell his story. He wanted to be the one to talk. He would ramble on and argue with the judge, just the average narcissistic personality.
Mhm.
He did have like a co-counsel situation, but he didn't listen to it. I think he legally had to be
He had to
like
be there,
given a
yeah.
counsel, but he was like, I'm gonna do it myself. So Jenny, Sharon's BFF from high school, Jenny comes to actually testify. Floyd gets in her face. You drew your opinion of me based on the information that the FBI told you, didn't you? And that's a quote. To which her response was, and I quote, no, I drew my opinion about you when I saw the type of lingerie you were buying your daughter and how you were making her dress. You were her daddy. She called you father. At this point, Floyd's attorney literally threw his papers in the air and the case was over. They charged him guilty on all accounts, and he was actually sentenced to 52 years in prison with no parole for the kidnapping of Mike. After his sentence, they found the truck that had been stolen and they used for kidnapping of Michael. Underneath the truck, they found obscene pornographic pictures. Some of these pictures were of Sharon when she was small. There was another young lady photograph that they hadn't seen before in various stages of being disrobed and beaten. The FBI agent reviewing it said there was no way that she was beaten to this extent and survived. They noticed that the girl that was in the pictures had tan lines, so they sent the pictures to the missing persons unit in Florida, Georgia, and Kentucky, the 3 places that he had been known to visit. The FBI agent literally called it a shot in the dark. In Florida, about a year earlier, highway crewmen had made a grisly discovery, a human skull which had 2 bullet holes in the back of it. It was classified as a homicide at the time, as they weren't able to identify the skeleton, so it had actually become a cold case. Until they were notified by the FBI that the photos from another case were found of a young lady that had been beaten severely. The shirt that they saw in the picture matched the shirt they had found buried with the body.
No.
As the shirts were matched, they went ahead and got dental records from who was currently being called Jane Doe 1-275 and confirmed that the skeleton was none other than Cheryl Comenso, who had vanished 6 years prior.
Damn it!
At this point, we're assuming that Floyd has killed Cheryl, and the reason that they disappeared so quickly from Tampa is because they were fleeing the scene. In Floyd's mind, police are going to be looking for a father, daughter, and her child, not a husband, wife, and their child. So they switched their identities and they stopped to get married in New Orleans. So Floyd was then charged with first-degree murder of Cheryl Comenso. He was then convicted for murder and sentenced to death. We don't know whatever happened to Michael, and we still don't know who Sharon is. And so enters this reporter who wants to write a book about it. He wants to bring awareness to it, and he wants to interview Floyd, who was on death row, for a confession. He wants to figure out what the fuck has actually happened. Mm-hmm. So he tries to do what he can. He goes and interviews Floyd. He's trying to get the secrets out of him before he is executed. And man, Floyd just starts talking. And he talks and talks. He wanted to tell his side of the story. He started with when he was born. He was abandoned as his child because his mother couldn't take care of him. So he left him at a halfway house. He was abused. Apparently, they would beat his feet so bad he couldn't walk. He was sexually assaulted by the other boys in the house. So by the time he was 18, he was just mentally effed. He ended up going in and out of prison at this point, which we kind of already knew. Mm-hmm. But anytime the reporter would bring up his crimes, he would adamantly deny them. When he would ask about Michael, he didn't want to talk about it. When they would ask him about Sharon, he didn't want to talk about it. The reporter then pushed and asked him where he got Sharon. His answer, I didn't get her. She just came with me.
What does that mean?
At the end of it, they completed the book. Didn't really have any new answers other than some things about Michael's past, but they published the book in 2004 anyway, in hopes to finding her identity. And it did. It got people talking. It got people reading it, interested. It sparked a new wave of recognition. In 2005, they actually got a new break. The author got an email asking if the DNA of Sharon's daughter could help.
What? Daughter?
Enter in Megan, who is the birth daughter of Sharon. She always knew she was adopted, but wasn't really interested in who her birth parents was until she read this book and knew she had to reach out. Megan's adopted parents ended up telling her after they read the book and found out what had happened. So they were able to obtain Megan's DNA, and then they started to map out Sharon's history. Sharon was pregnant 3 times. Once in high school, where the
Okay.
baby was supposedly adopted. One was obviously Michael. And then the third that was given up for adoption in New Orleans, and that was Megan. But in 2011, there was a new breakthrough in DNA, and they were able to use Megan's DNA to go through the missing children's archives. They also wanted another shot at interviewing Floyd as he was due to be executed. So this all started 1990. So we're in 2011. The original FBI agent has retired. So now we have 2 new FBI agents on the scene, and they go to interview Floyd, who's on death row. Floyd comes in to this interview, sits down and talks for like 45 minutes, and finally takes a break. And I was like, oh yeah, where are you 2 from? And they're like, we're from the FBI. He was like, why are you here? And one of the guys is like, I want to reopen this case. He was like, yeah, can you not? Like, Floyd was like, can you just not? Anyways, they go into it in such good detail on the thing, but basically they start playing good cop, bad cop on him, and one of the guys gets in his face saying like, why did you kill him? Why did you kill him? Like, why would you do this? Like, starts like hitting the table, getting adamant. How did you kill him? And he was like, I just killed him with 2 shots in the back of the head to make it real quick. In the interview, kind of looked at each other like, we didn't actually think we were going to get it out of him. And he just... Then they asked him where he was. They were like, well, we buried him near the Oklahoma-Texas border. So they finally had the answer to what happened to Michael, but they were never able to recover the body. Floyd just kept talking in the interview at this point. He randomly starts saying how he had been a bus driver. At one point in time, he met a girl named Sandy, and Sandy had just had her 3 kids taken away by the state. They were like, okay, well, what was your name? And he was like, oh, it was Brandon Williams. A brand new alias, by the way. He ended up marrying Sandy and adopting her daughters. And the FBI agents are like, all right, well, tell us more about the daughters. Like, who was the oldest daughter? And his response was, well, that's the girl you're asking about. And they were like, where was she born? Like, he was like, Liviana, Michigan. And that was Sharon.
Okay.
Her real name was Suzanne Savakis. And they were like, well, how do you know all this? And he was like, because I saw her birth certificate. So they were able to look her up, find her birth parents, and inform them of what had happened because they were both still alive. Her birth mother had gotten married and had Susan by the age of 18. Susan's father, they had fell in love in high school, but he went to Vietnam. Vietnam fucked him up, as Vietnam had done to a lot of people. So they ended up getting divorced. Susan's birth mom had 2 other girls by a different man and then divorced him. They then moved into a trailer because she's a single mom for 3 kids. And the trailer was hit by a fucking tornado.
Jesus Christ. Can't catch a break.
No, she can't. Her mom suffered from extreme. She was like, back then they didn't know what to call it, but as now you would call it like PTSD. She actually went to social services. She needed help. And so what social service did was they actually just took her kids away from her because they didn't want to treat her. They just thought she was crazy. And so they took her kids away.
Okay. I guess that's one way. Okay.
Now enters in Floyd, who promises to marry her, adopt her the kids so she can keep them. Floyd starts showing abusive behavior. Mom ends up writing a bad check at a fucking 7-Eleven and ends up going to jail for 30 days.
And then the kids
that's
disappear.
when he took the children. He had Allison and Amy, who were the 2 youngest. They actually dropped him off at a local orphanage, but took Susie and left. So, how they ended the documentary, which I thought was just very touching. On June 3rd in 2017, they had a tombstone ceremony where they revealed her actual tombstone that read, Suzanne Marie Savakis, devoted mother and friend. Her family and friends, family from everywhere, and her birth daughter and her family, her friends from the different various, they all kind of got close after all this. They all met there and they gave her the memorial that she always had deserved. And that is the story of Sharon Marshall, but Tanya.
I hated that so much.
Yeah, so guys, that's it for our episode. if you enjoyed
I probably
podcast,
won't be here next week. I probably will not be here. I'm gone. Goodbye. I'm retiring.
That's it. 11 and done. But seriously, please don't forget to follow the podcast, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know if you like what we're doing or constructive criticism. If you're watching on YouTube, hi, like and subscribe, and if you do, like, hit that little bell and I'll let you know when our videos go live. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our username is TTATA Podcast, and that's where we post all our updates. Thanks for listening. This week we're going to be covering horrifying history, which I'm excited about. Yeah, I looked that up before we did this because I usually have to look it up. I know, I was prepared. But with that, we're going to leave you with this inspirational quote.
Today's a short one, which I don't know if it's good or bad, but here we go.
Oh no.
Don't let yesterday take too much of today by Will Rogers. Basically, don't focus too much on the past.
Yeah.
Which I think is important.
Yeah, that's actually really good. Anyway, bye guys.